Welcome to the Future of Work podcast. I'm Emma Chalwin, CMO at Workday, and I'm thrilled to be joined by our wonderful President of Product and Technology, Gerrit Kazmaier. You've been very vocal about the fact that we aren't just seeing a technology update, we're witnessing a total tectonic shift in how business happens. We've all had that kind of light bulb moment where we realized the whole world had shifted, especially the new world of work. Could you think back to a specific moment in time when you realized that AI was going to completely change the trajectory of work as we once knew it?
Yeah, definitely. I think we all had that. And, the funny thing is when it comes to AI or, generative AI right now, we all had that intuition in the technology community, if you will, about neural networks. Most of us actually have built them in school and it did, really primitive things. And then, with the first versions of ChatGPT, right, there was for the first time when you could see what the technology that intuitively, everyone believed had great potential was put into practice in a way which was really surprising, because with ChatGPT, it was not only that the domain of neural nets was now applied to text and to language successfully. It was also that it created not just syntactically correct sentences, but semantically meaningful statements, right?
Yeah.
And, I remember when we wrote our first Christmas cards with ChatGPT. Maybe I shouldn't say that out in public.
I was going to say, that's a secret that you've just learned
Exactly. But it was so good, but it was also still so limited, right? But it was a big breakthrough moment, right? Because we for the first time saw that many of the things that we thought to be innate human, like being creative and right, actually can be successfully encoded in data and in algorithms, right? With the first versions of ChatGPT. And that was really good, right? But I don't think anyone has yet seen what it truly represents about it, shifting economies, societies, businesses. I think that really came in once those models started to be gaining reasoning capabilities and the architecture evolved, right? For the longest time, they couldn't do math, they couldn't do logical reasoning. They were really bad at anything which was not creative writing, more or less, or text-based analysis. And once that happened, maybe, 1.5 years ago, right, when there was this whole shift in the industry to reasoning loops and runtime reasoning, there was this second breakthrough moment, right, where suddenly it became clear that it's not just creative tasks, but actually cognitive challenging work. Like you get a high-level objective, you have to break it down into steps and into a plan and execute them sequentially and deal with lots of nuance while doing that, actually becomes technically possible and economically viable. And I think that was the breakthrough moment where now, for us like Workday, this is the best ever, right? Because it allows us to create amazing new experiences and solutions.
That's wonderful. And the whole tectonic shift we've talked about and the speed of which technology had advanced in this world of AI makes it super exciting, and we're at the forefront of it. So it's great news. But at Workday, we've always said that trust is our ultimate product, and we handle the most sensitive data from our customers across the globe, people's livelihoods and their money, which are two pretty important assets. So Gerrit, how do we accelerate this AI roadmap whilst maintaining and maybe even elevating the trust we've spent decades building with our customers?
Of the people who are using AI the most, you would expect, right, they are the ones getting the most, in terms of productivity gains out of all of the companies that we have surveyed. But it turns out those most frequent users are also the ones who are investing most of their time back into verifying and checking their AI work results themselves, right, in verification. I think it was 40% of their time spent of reinvestment into verifying the output of AI. And I think that simple fact, shows us something, really clear that we have to wrestle with. And a very important duality when we think about speed and enterprise systems. So the reality is that AI, they are probabilistic systems, which means that, they're statistical in nature, right? They're not deterministic. And that's something that people in their work experience, they're not used to it, right? Classical software systems are rule-based, deterministic algorithms. They behave all the way the same way. there's nothing for you to explicitly verify from one run to another, right? It works the same. And AI changes that. It's the very core of that technology. And now we have the very interesting situation, right? We have this hyper proficient technology that can take over human cognition. We didn't have that before. We can automate processes now in an entirely different way, right? Because we basically take the reasoning step, that a human would have done and give it to a model. And that gives us amazing opportunities, right? Because we can do so much work that we didn't even have any humans forever, just to complete it. Take it, our contract intelligence scans thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands contracts, mines them for insight, right? No one would have ever hired 100 or 1,000 lawyers for that. But there's so much potential with this hyper automation, and that's the duality, right? That while AI clearly changes how this business processes work and how they're automated, at the same point in time, they also need to change the work experience. And that's the duality, right? It's not only about changing the process, it's changing the work experience at the same time to make it aware of how to work with AI, consistently, reliably, repeatable, enterprise-grade governance, like you said, security for your people and your money. And also guides the end user now to actually utilize and harness the technologies to that best extent, right? By actually telling them, this is something I could, do for you. I could automate it, or, vice versa. This is something where the human component comes in, where I need your help, right? Where human judgment, critical thinking, goal setting is so important.
Yeah, wonderful. That's super interesting. And it really does reemphasize the point that we need to trust and leverage AI and technology to transform the human experience and really elevate us as humans.
That's right.
Whilst we are at work. You mentioned a lot about our research throughout this conversation. Another key takeaway is that we found a disconnect. There are 4 in 5 leaders agree that reinvesting AI gains into people is crucial. And you mentioned earlier, they're diverting more savings to technology and increased work volume than to upskilling their workforce. To truly re-examine the employee experience and bridge this gap, what single philosophical shift must leaders embrace to help their teams thrive in this new world of work?
I actually think it is, quite simple. I think we have a misconception of AI as a technology innovation, right? And it feels like, this is an investment in technology and it's, just going to be adopted and used and everyone is going to be, successful and happy with that. And at the same point in time, right, we've seen all of the big studies done, from all of the research institutes, including our own research, which verified that while there is a ton of investment into AI, there is not a lot of business return yet, from AI. And that really comes from that, misconception of putting it only as a technology change. It's actually a work change, right? Suddenly.
And a way of life.
Maybe even that, right? Maybe that's too philosophical for me.
I think it is, yeah.
But you can also, I think about it as an equalizer, as an amplifier, meaning like it amplifies something that you do. And amplification can go in both ways, right? It can make you better and more productive, but amplification can also be negative and make you much worse, right? Because you have this big leverage function now called AI to generate output. So what we found as, the key to success is just connecting it back to that idea of it's a change in the employee experience and how they work. And there needs to be a new way for doing it, a new work day, right? A new way of how people actually engage in their work, engage with AI. And at the same point in time, these hyper-reliable, hyper-accurate, enterprise-grade AI agents that now automate, the work, that, will free us up to do other things.
I know you missed doing your expenses. You tell me that a lot.
No, I don't, not at all, right? And actually, I love not having to do this anymore. And I think the really cool thing is, right, that now the question is, what is it that we're doing with this free time, right? Yeah. And it goes back to setting the right goals, having really good business judgment and critical thinking. Those were all of the skills that really were highlighted in our survey of people who are successful with AI, because they can use, that equalizer and that amplifier in a productive way.
That's wonderful. Now, I'm going to close this out by getting a little creative here. So let's look down the road for a second. If we fast forward, I say 5 years, but it might be 6 months, might be quite transformational at this point in a world. I can feel it every morning change in an employee's daily workforce. What's going to be the most measurable way that they feel that change? And how is Workday making sure our customers are ready for that shift today?
Yeah, they will come home more happy because they feel like their day is productive and they're adding value versus doing work for the sake of work, which today a lot of work is all about. And I think that's what makes people not only unproductive, but also unhappy when they come home. And did I have a great work day? And I think with what we are creating, an intelligent work experience that helps you get stuff done in a good way, right? Helps you, to achieve your goals that you're setting in your career, in your company, in your team, will genuinely make people go home happy.
Hopefully they go home happy, maybe 30 minutes earlier. What do you think?
I don't know. I actually think when people are happy and when you're engaged, you're not
they
working
want to stay
less.
longer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's it's fun to have fun.
It is indeed. It's a much happier life for sure. Well, Gerrit, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such an energizing way to kick off season 2 and a new year. So to everyone listening, this is just the beginning of the conversation. If you enjoyed today's chat, please subscribe to the Future of Work podcast wherever you get your shows. We have so much more to explore together.